Nicole Wallace of MSNBC took no Republican prisoners today as she called them out with the line,
"You're all so embarrassing,"
while playing a greatest hits reel of their collective two-faced farce while under Donald Trump's control. In the clips you're about to see, coward, con artist, and demonic force are just a few of the words that prominent Republicans use to describe Trump with, while at nearly the same time praising him as if he's a Hitler-like ruler and they're his obedient generals. And there's even a story of one of the most powerful Republicans, while trapped in the spell of Donald Trump, crying on 2 occasions. A story that puts an exclamation point on the competing forces within the GOP that turns leaders into lemmings and senators into sycophants. Now watch as Wallace trots out several A-list Republicans for a walk of shame.
It is a phenomenon that will be studied for years, for decades, on both the political level and human behavioral level. How Republican after Republican after Republican after Republican has abandoned their morals, their previously stated standards, their compass, to openly embrace the criminally convicted, grab him in the bleep, twice impeached ex-President Donald J. Trump. All of his autocratic impulses, his stated desire to use the military on American citizens, his flagrant misogyny, his out in the open racism, and his appetite for violence, once going so far as to incite a deadly insurrection against them. These men and women know deep down the danger that Donald Trump poses to the country because they have said it.
I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
I got the easiest job in politics because all that I have to do is go out and remind the American people that Donald Trump was the president of peace and prosperity.
He's a race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot. He doesn't represent my party. He doesn't represent the values that the men and women who wear the uniform are fighting for. This is the toughest guy I think I ever met. He's the modern version of Teddy Roosevelt.
I'm sorry. Then there's the group of folks who ran against Trump.
I bet you all know, you all have friends. You all have friends that are thinking about voting for Donald Trump. Friends, do not let friends vote for con artists.
By giving voice to everyday Americans, President Trump has not just transformed our party, he has inspired a movement.
Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Heidi the hell alone.
God bless Donald J. Trump.
Why? Tucker Carlson describes Donald Trump this way, and quote, "He is a demonic force, a destroyer, but he's not going to destroy us." Clearly not the same message he pushes publicly.
This is the most responsible, unifying behavior of a leader I think I've ever seen.
You may have noticed that there was one very prominent Republican who was left out of that cavalcade of incongruence. It's the reported crier that I mentioned earlier, and he is someone who was seen many times dancing for Donald in front of microphones and cameras during the Trump years. Have you guessed who it is? Amanda Carpenter breaks it down.
Amazing to me is the disdain for the Republican voter, the disgust for the Trump base, that they will say in private to reporters with tape recorders, Trump is a despicable human being. He's a narcissist. That's what Mitch McConnell really thinks of him. America's Hitler, cultural heroine. That's what J.D. Vance really thinks of him. Someone for whom the 25th Amendment was too slow of a process to rid the country of him. That's what Kevin McCarthy really thinks of him. And then go out like it's North Korean state TV and say the opposite in front of cameras. What is that about those men?
It's their conscience has been broken by partisanship. I mean, this is what you see again and again. And, you know, when you played the clip of Liz Cheney talking about dishonor and the clip of McConnell, I was just thinking, you know, there was excerpts in this book that's coming out about his career, about how he cried in front of his staff after January 6th because he was so upset about what they had to go through that day. His wife resigned over what happened. People don't really talk about that. But there was another point in the book where he also cried because he was so happy that he had broken the record for being the longest serving Republican Senate leader. So you look at those two things and it's like, well, which one was more important to him? Clearly, it's being part of the Republican Party, being part of the club, being part of the tribe, right? I mean, he can look at the situation and see this is a terrible thing that happened. Donald Trump isn't qualified to be president. But when he was in a position to do something about it after January 6th, he did not go along with convicting him. If he, as Senate Majority Leader, could have convinced and delivered the votes for Republicans to convict him, and we would not be in that situation. He chose otherwise because he thought the partisanship was more important. And so that's just, I mean, it's really hard to grapple with.
Before Amanda Carpenter spoke, Nicole Wallace made the case for the disdain of the Republican voter. But that's where I think mainstream media gets it wrong. Republican versus Democrat is an old school paradigm that works on a ballot, but the concept of a Republican voter is something that has been blurred by Trump, and the party has been twisted at his will. It is now the party of Trump and MAGA. Republicans laid down when he stormed the castle. And as for the MAGA base, much of it was apolitical before Trump hypnotized them, and they wouldn't have known fascism from fasciitis. The Republican leaders that were just featured represents old school Republicans, but they do not necessarily represent the party of Trump. But Trump, despite all of his many very big shortcomings, still retains the loyalty of most of the old school Republicans and all of the MAGA enthusiasts. Ultimately, I don't think it'll be the undecided voters who decide the election. I think it'll come down to voter turnout. Democrats and others who are demanding change have to defeat the unified force of the old Republican Party and the new party of Trump with a turnout like the world has never seen before. As for those old school Republicans who sold their soul to the demonic force of Trump, Liz Cheney, I'll give you the final word.
There will come a day when Donald Trump is gone, but your dishonor will remain.